This is Kim and Kim, and welcome to Ask Mom's podcast.
Hi, this is Kim and Kim. Welcome back to Ask Mom's podcast. We are not professionals, but we can share our experience and remind you that you're awesome. We're talking all things motherhood, the good, the tough, and everything in between. Today's episode of Ask Moms is esports, and we have a special guest, Carson Hill, who is an esports coach and consultant.
Welcome, Carson.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us.
Very much.
So if you're a mom or dad like me, and who's ever said you're spending too much time on that game, this episode is for you. So my understanding is today's guest, he's not just a coach, he's a mentor and a leader who's turned gaming into scholarships, pro careers, and serious life skills for hundreds of young players. Since 2017, he's been coaching at the highest levels in Overwatch and Valorant, helping kids go from competitive ladders to full ride scholarships, and even professional contracts. He's worked with private organizations like Plus Mafia, Nightblood Gaming, and the Wichita Wolves, with major universities like Kent State, Midland University, and even the University of Toronto.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning. What first inspired you to start coaching in esports, and what has kept you passionate about it?
So I began coaching in 2017. It was a long shot. I was essentially offered a temporary position just to help out a friend's team. Turns out I have a major knack for coaching and enabling better improvement, skill progression, and slotted in, found out I really enjoyed it, scratched the competitive itch. I was already playing competitively, semi-professionally at this point in time, and I just decided to go ahead and run with that journey. So that's how I landed here.
When is the first time you started to play or game?
When I first started to play games.
Yeah, like what?
How old
was
were
it
you?
Public school, like I must have been in grade 2 or 3, like just playing games casually.
Yeah.
I didn't really know I was good enough to play until I probably hit full stride and started just becoming top rank in all my games end of public school, right leading up to high school.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and how did you hear about moving to the next level?
It's essentially a fluke because there's scouting processes. It is kind of like traditional sports in a sense. However, for me, mine, like I said, I almost fluked into the whole position because in Call of Duty, I was essentially invited to Pro Pugs, which stands for pickup games, which are like kind of floating lobbies that people can play between pro matches. And I got to fill in them, and I had a ton of fun. And I didn't really know how competitive it was, but I was holding my own in these lobbies as a kid, and I was playing alongside these players that I watched playing on YouTube as an example.
Right.
It was really cool. Got to play alongside some huge names, and then I started realizing, like, if I'm here, I have to be good enough in some way, shape, or form. So I pursued that path. Yeah. And I just kept playing. Against my better judgment, I admittedly skipped a lot of classes in high school to go home and play games. I passed. I graduated. Don't get me wrong. But
it's
it landed
still
where I am
good to
now.
stay in school.
Absolutely, yeah. School should always be esports. Despite my love for it, it's very, very tough to make it a primary go. It's the same way when you're aiming to be an Olympic swimmer. You don't go to school on a swimming scholarship with the goals of becoming a professional swimmer. You're using your scholarship to get you an education for a career path that is realistic and grounded for you, because no one stays a professional athlete or esports athlete for 5+ years. It's extremely difficult to do. It's unrealistic.
So when you were first playing and you were doing really well at Call of Duty, these people you were playing against, were they older than high school age and elementary school?
I would say so. At that point in time, they absolutely were. Now it's weird because the average pro player age in most of the more competitive titles, think games like, for people listening, like League of Legends, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, Valorant, things like Overwatch, Dota, the average pro player age lands somewhere between 17 and 23. 23 being old guard. You've been in the flow for a very long time at this point in time. You're well respected, hopefully. Otherwise, you're doing something wrong. Whereas on the flip side of things, some people, like I feel like I'm too old to play. I would just get outpaced by younger players because I don't commit all day, every day to playing games now. So that's one of the reasons I transitioned into a coaching and consulting position.
Like an ex-NHL player. Now
transitioning into coaching.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Good for you.
So a lot of listeners are parents. So can you help them kind of understand what does a good esports program offer a young player that goes kind of beyond the game?
So what a good program looks like is it offers career opportunities, life skills in and outside of the game. Some programs and some schools and some private teams and organizations who host these teams, they take on a strictly performance-oriented role where if the team isn't performing and not winning and not bringing in some money, some viewership, the team's a wash. They cut their rosters, same as you do a rebuild in a traditional sports world. It's difficult because it's not really good for growth, good for long term. It's immediately going to wash out a lot of players from the system, people who very much can excel and find themselves in a successful position way down the road and build a career out of it. And it's important, especially when you're looking at things like schooling or organizations that are offering some sort of benefit for playing for them. It's important to understand what they're actually bringing to the table, whether it's a scholarship or whether it's learning and life opportunities. Any of the top teams, it's called Tier 1 when you're at the top tier level, when players are finding themselves getting offered $100,000 plus contracts each year.
Wow.
They all have in-house cooks. They all get very good cooking, right? They live in a team house. They live in a condo complex, and it's all rented out by the organization. And it's almost like your own bubble, right? And you have a physician who's there with you. You have doctors who are there with you, and they keep you up and they keep you healthy. They make sure the team gets out for walks and exercise the same as traditional sports trainers are in the real world. It is nerdy because when you look at it in a vacuum, it's a bunch of kids, specifically kids, because I'm going to use the term kids lightly. Under 23 is a kid to me. It's weird because, it's almost like you're in public school again, where it's like it's almost recess time. You go out and you get exercise and stuff like that. Right. And some teams don't spend the money on it. Lots of teams don't. It's very rare that you get a full opportunity like that. It's important to know when and where they are when they come around.
You're a student. You get interested in playing these games from a little kid. You grow into maybe high school, you realize you're kind of good at it. So there's teams that are developed in school for these different games?
There absolutely is. So myself as an example, I always, regardless of when I was coaching professionally at some form and level, most recently I coached a top 25 Valorant team, which was very cool. I'm very proud of that for myself. While I was coaching that, I did work alongside a high school and collegiate team at the same time. So I kind of balanced them back and forth and helped hone these skills and gave them some sort of path forward. Right? I opened their eyes to that.
You've coached players who have gone on to these full-ride scholarships. Well done. That is so awesome. So most parents associate this type of scholarship with traditional sports scholarships. Can you walk us through the esports process and your involvement?
So it's called grassroots esports versus collegiate esports is the two paths. So grassroots is essentially when a certain game is extremely popular and they create this grassroots from the ground up natural progression where players can become pro. New game comes out, people don't know how good other people will be at, start playing. If you're really good, you find yourself on a team. That's like a grassroots path that you can take outside of collegiate and schooling, which it's entirely viable, good opportunity. You have to be the best of the best. No different than, aiming to be a Olympic athlete. If you're not good enough to be there, you shouldn't be there. You should put yourself in collegiate and find a more honest, straightforward, and conductive path moving forward for yourself. So
and brought you to the next level. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So myself as an example, I just played ladder, like ranked matchmaking, competitive mode, and whatever game we want to look at and talk at. And you make friends, you communicate, you socialize, you create a bubble, like a social net. It's the same as networking in the real world. I don't want to say like LinkedIn per se, but similar to that. Like it's no different than being in a sales job and working networking at the end of the day. You're just spreading your net and you're putting your name out there. And different skill sets go so far because I've built very successful winning teams where I don't have the best players, but I have the most cohesive players. And I've also built teams where we aren't cohesive at all and we're just doing our own thing, but it's chaotic and it works and we thrive in it. It's no different than traditional sports in that sense.
Okay, so you were talking about the grassroots orgs and top-tier universities. So how can parents tell if this esports program is legit and healthy for their kids?
Yeah, so the number one way I think parents should be screening and learning how to screen these opportunities for their children is if the school offers a proper scholarship program that can actually help pay your way into the school and offers benefits from playing on the team, it's one thing. If the team has a winning record and is a competitive team in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in traditional sports or, esports and they're meshing over, it's probably the best way to look about it. Because some schools, I won't name any, excuse me.
You can if you want to, but
some schools, not that I'll name any, Their program is almost more of a tax write-off, unfortunately, and it's not taken very seriously.
Yeah.
The people who are up at the top are, in choosing where money goes, just know it's a free way to pump money in and draw eyes to the program, but they don't care about the program. And then it hits the ground and it flops. It's not hitting the ground running. And then they cancel, they pull funding, and the people who are playing in these programs for these schools have their scholarship money revoked, or worse, like the program doesn't exist anymore and they've enrolled in the school partially because of that. It's one of the reasons why esports is very juvenile and why it's important for parents to help their children navigate the space and understand where to help them and direct them, because it's the same way you wouldn't want to send your kid to school to play, hockey, football, basketball, baseball, and then all of a sudden the program disappears from one year to the next because the team flopped and they didn't know how to handle it. Sports have been around for hundreds of years. Sports are known. Esports has not. No one, it's going to sound a little bit posh, no one who's in the position and experience with money way up at the top has experience with esports.
No.
Because it's come into play so late in their lives. And that's why it's important that schools not only appoint someone who's aware and comfortable with these things
Like
and
you.
consult, like myself, one of many people who can do that. And they can bring people on board and consult with them and build a proper program, because you have to offer something or your retainment drops. And if you're not retaining players and students, why are you running a business as a school? Or why are you running a school as a business, I should say.
And it would just make the university look better, too, if they have a really good program, right, and a great team.
Exactly.
So.
It goes a long way. Me personally, there's some schools and programs that I won't name, but if they were to reach out to me and offer me an opportunity after either having worked with them in the past or knowing of them and knowing people who have worked in them, they're immediately off my radar. They're not something I would even consider at all, regardless of the pay or the opportunity. It does not make sense for you to work with some of these schools. And it's because they treat you like a business and a number, and you're another cog in the system. You're just a wheel in the machine. And it's not, traditional sports, it feels like that. But
they don't have the passion for the sport like traditional sports.
They don't, no. And that's why it's very unfortunate. Not yet.
Younger people are getting older.
There are lots of schools that have that, and as you said, there are lots of young people who are getting older. Man, I've been in the fold now for essentially 9 years. I'm 26 now. I've had run-ins with more schools than I can count. Most of the time I've been left disappointed because there's no grounding, there's no core understanding of the realm that they're diving into, and they dive in what they think is head first, but realistically they don't know how deep it goes to the bottom. Right. Man, when you jump from such a height, you're going to break something when you land.
And that's all part of your learning experience, unfortunately, right? You have to go through those bumps.
Absolutely, yeah.
What a waste. Let's hope that the schools who are missing out on these great opportunities to excel at esports take advantage of your knowledge and wisdom and experience and use you to help build their programs in a consulting role.
Absolutely. There's lots of schools in Canada that are getting on board now, thankfully.
Excellent.
And there's some very prominent American schools who have very expensive, prestigious programs, and it's starting to rub off around the rest of the world, specifically in Europe and in Canada, thankfully. So we're getting to that point where it's approaching a more mainstream approach, because as an example, you can now go onto websites like YouTube and Twitch where you can watch streaming, and some collegiate matches are actually being shown on the front page, which is awesome, because previously, even when I was competing very actively, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that would never happen. You'd never see collegiate schooling and collegiate competitive esports on the front page, but now it's picking up steam.
This is exciting.
How do you monitor to know that you're playing against another legit esports team?
So there is registries that have to happen where a school has to be fully registered. They have to proof of student enrollment. They have to provide student IDs, everything like that. From time to time, you do hear about some foul play where there might be some online shenanigans happening where someone logged in for someone else and played for them. It's called boosting, right? So you play in someone's place on their account. So it looks like them on paper, but, in practice, it's clearly not. Those cases, I will admit, are very far and few between. It's no different than using, dare I say, performance-enhancing drugs in traditional sports. They're very far and few between, but it is foul play and it does happen.
So earlier, you had mentioned scouts. Can you please expand on this for us?
There is definitely scouts, not in the traditional sense where, scouting and recruiting is mostly done by people like myself who schools have contacted and are kind of shaping a program. And one of the only ways to do that is to make posts in public chat rooms. Like Discord is now a huge tool. Reddit is now a huge tool. Social media in general plays a huge part in esports, whereas in traditional sports, it hasn't really got there yet.
So then the more your name is out there, the more you will be noticed.
The more often a name pops up, the better in most circumstances. I've always liked building underdog teams personally. I've never liked, there's very few teams that I've put my own money into because normally I like to build teams as a passion project. They're called project rosters, or they used to be anyways in my golden era of esports, because you can build a team and you can be a big organization, throw lots of money at it, or you can be a humble, more private organization who does not throw money at the wall and tries to build something based on passion and predicted projection based on your coaching staff or management staff, right? Okay. So it kind of goes hand in hand with scouting, because you just have to put your name out there. And if you don't network in esports, you won't go anywhere. I tried my absolute hardest not to network. I found it extremely difficult to get anywhere. I was getting offered trials, but no one knew of me by name. They knew of me by my work, obviously, but they didn't know me by name, and it limited my opportunities. So I had to start doing networking as an example. And I started late, and it's one of the things that I definitely harp to all my players is, like, you need to make sure you're doing something to market yourself, not just your performance. Because anyone can get up there and play well, but not everyone can get up there and play well and also have a strong presence on stage or in the room.
So the players need you to help them, coach them, and mentor them, and the universities and colleges need you to be on a board developing these programs and these teams, right? If they want to have a really good, successful.
Absolutely. Without sounding too pompous, people like me are essential to the sport.
Absolutely.
Because without people who are knowledgeable and understanding and provide a foundation, your program won't go anywhere. Right. You can't really you can't make something attractive to players and students if you don't know what's going on in their mind, shape, or form. No. And because of that, it creates this vacuum where, because esports is so accessible, as I said earlier, there's so much going on at once, you really have to be on top of it. And you're not comfortable with it, and you don't know how to screen and gauge what's happening at any point in time in performance and understand how valuable it is. Lots of people think it's just a bunch of nerds cooped up in a room. And you know what? I've been there. I admit it very much is like that, but it's so much more than that, and it will be allowed to be more than that all the time if it keeps going at the rate it is now.
Do you have like online videos or something that kind of walks them through steps of how to get involved?
My coaching and consulting has always been involved in more of I almost want to say, competitive and professional approach. I don't necessarily publish and post videos where people can watch and follow along with the series saying this is what you should do and this is what your next path is. I've always taken a very hands-on approach because, myself...
Individual.
Exactly. I went through the system, and to be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of school, high school specifically, because I just felt like a number and it was grade oriented. I know there's more to it than that. I know there's more to performance than that. I know there's more value that someone provides in a team than that. Yeah. And that's how I like to approach things, is just a singular hands-on one-by-one approach where I can actually offer real-world experience and walk someone through their whereas if I were just to go ahead and take a cookie cutter template and apply it, it would maybe apply to 10% of people because everyone's different their own way. And unfortunately, not everyone can afford post-secondary education, which means scholarships are all that much more appealing. It's very difficult to even get noticed, which is why it's important to have people who can refer you to programs for scouting.
So that's why really it's important to have these programs at the high school. So
Absolutely.
People can get involved and have a better understanding of what they can do, where they can go, how to do it, kind of
what are the
visualize
steps
it.
you need to take or your kids need to take.
Yeah.
When you mention sounding pompous, it's not at all, because you're at that age where you're bringing the valuable knowledge and skill sets to these schools and corporations where previously they may not have had any access to this information unless maybe they asked their kids or their grandkids. But if we were smart enough to hire you, then it would be a great success. So that's just intelligent. Yeah.
It's so funny you're saying that, because when you said that, I thought to myself, if I was a teacher, I would want him as a student.
100%.
You have to tap into
You would have been lucky to find me in class.
Stay in school, kids. Make sure you go to class, like Carson said earlier. Okay, so I got a big question. How has esports developed?
Esports, while I say it's very juvenile right now still, you should have seen it years ago. 5 years ago, it was very ragtag. The most that ever happened really a little bit more than 5 years ago. I almost want to say 7, 8 years ago, outside of very prestigious events, people sitting at home in their basement with webcams playing in a tournament. And that's how you screened if people were cheating or not. You'd have a webcam on them and they'd sit there and they'd play. It's gone from something where it's all remote, it's all from your home, to deliberate stadiums now that have been built specifically for esports.
Exciting.
I won't name the school. I recently interviewed for a school for a coaching application and consultant application as they're building their esports program. It is in the US, and their facility costed, I want to take a stab because they gave me a range. I'm going to assume $8 million USD, and it's a 2,600 square foot facility in the middle of campus with 2 floors, multiple rooms, obviously. It's a very large facility.
Yeah.
And for this school, it's a tax write-off, as I said, and their program was not being taken very seriously.
Oh.
And this is a monumental amount of money to be spending.
No kidding.
So there's clearly money being spent, but if it's not going in the right places, and stuff like that is really what holds esports back. Because if you look at what developers are doing who own games, when they're building these stadiums, it's for the grassroots scene.
Yeah.
It's with the best intent moving forward. They're offering all players the best foot forward going into it. They're saying there will be career paths here, whether you're a coach, whether you're staff, admin, production team, anything.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I also help people learn is there's not just playing in esports. There's not just coaching.
Yeah.
You can do so much behind the scenes.
Spin-offs.
People want to go to school for graphic design, or, media design. Well, attach yourself to esports
So
and find that path. But that's why grassroots systems and collegiate systems have to exist, because without it, it's just corporate overhang, and it's seen as a business for monetary reasons. Can't be sustained.
What's the potential earning?
Absolutely. So I'll speak from my own experience that I've provided to my players and myself. So in 2019, I was offered a 2-year contracted position to be flown to LA and live in essentially a condo complex with the rest of my team. And we were a bunch of kids from all over North America, East Coast, West Coast, Canada, the USA. There's 7 of us in total, 2 coaching staff, 5 players. And we were given the opportunity to take this contract, and all of us were going to receive $80,000 USD for 2 years. It unfortunately was something that none of us really dove into and believed at the time, because we didn't have the experience with it and we didn't have guidance. And us being a bunch of, 18 to 20-year-olds, were operating this vacuum where we're like, oh yeah, this is super cool, but it doesn't feel real. And I wish I had someone like myself now who told me that, because
they needed you.
Exactly. I needed myself in the future, and I didn't know that at the time, right? I didn't know that. And it's a good opportunities like that. So there's just one example. I keep track of all my players. I have an 87% success rate, which I deem a success rate. 87% of my players have all gone on for full contracted positions with teams or scholarships to some degree. And 60% of the scholarships have been full ride, which I'm very proud of.
Everybody needs Carson here. Just saying, universities, parents, students, all you guys. What do you think the biggest opportunities and challenges are going to be for youth in esports over the next 5 years?
Definitely going to be finding a balanced approach. Lots of people say if you're not willing to sit down on a screen for 8 hours after your schooling, you won't make it. It's not true. It's no different than, again, being a traditional athlete. After school, you're not going to the ball diamond and you're not hitting a batting machine for 7 hours straight. No. Right? It's unrealistic. You have to keep it tempered. Pulling an all-nighter with your friends and staying up all night playing games to no end until your eyes are bleeding in the morning and you see the sun is not an answer. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's solely about being balanced and finding a healthy approach, because your mental health comes first. Balance it properly. And if you're not willing to do that, then it's not for you.
And it's really cool. Carson's not wearing glasses either.
Yes.
So,
no, my eyes are good. My eyes are good, I swear.
No, but that's a huge thing, right? Because that's one of the concerns.
For the moms
you always
listening out there.
Absolutely. I have a monumental amount of screen time. Not proud of it. And I do not need glasses. It's true. So screen time, as long as it's done correctly, is not damaging.
There, see?
You heard it from me.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
a doctor, but you heard it from me.
You heard it here, parents. Before we wrap up, where can parents, players, or schools connect with you to learn more about your coaching and consulting and mentoring and just you being awesome?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually provide my personal work email for coaching. So it's mordredp@gmail.com. So it's MORDREDP, as in the letter P, @gmail.com. Awesome. Yeah, it doesn't matter where people are. I'm always willing to help. If you're approaching a school, there's always a chance to have an esports scholarship opportunity. Okay. And you don't have to be the best, because there's different leagues and divisions within collegiate. So you don't have to be the best of the best.
So a big thank you to Carson.
And for all the parents listening, whether your kid is just grinding, ranked, or dreaming of going pro, this conversation shows that esports isn't just screen time. It can be a gateway to education, community, and even a career. Please connect with us by emailing askmomstoday@gmail.com. Yeah, until next time, take care of yourself, because
you've got this.